निज भक्ति करम प्रिय चारुतरम नटनर्तन नागर राजकुलम कुलकामिनी मानसलास्य करम प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम निज भक्ति करम प्रिय चारुतरम नटनर्तन नागर राजकुलम कुलकामिनी मानसदास्य करम प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम करतालवलं कलकण्ठरवं मृदुबाहुवीनकया मधुरं निज भक्ति गुणावृत नाट्यकरं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरं करतालवलं कलकण्ठरवं मृदुवाद्यसुवीनकया मधुरं निज भक्ति गुणावृत नाट्यकरं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम् युगधर्मयुतं पूर्णानन्दसुतं धरणीषु चित्रं भवभावचितं तनुध्यानचितं निजवासयुतं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरं युगधर्मयुतं पूर्णानन्दसुतं धरणीषु चित्रं भवभावचितं तनुधानचितं निजवासयुतं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम् अरुणं नयनं चरणं वसनं वदने स्खलितं स्वकनामधरं कुरुते सुरसं जगतजीवनं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम् अरुणं नयनं चरणं वसनं वदने स्खलितं स्वकनामधरं कुरुते सुरसं जगतजीवनं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरम् नवगौरवरं नवपुष्पसरं नवभावधरं नवलस्य परं नवगौरवरं नवपुष्पसरं नवभावधरं नवलस्य परं नवहास्यकरं नवहेमवरं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरं नवहास्यकरं नवहेमवरं प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरं 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 प्रणमामि शचीसुत गौरवरं
Hare Krishna, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Anika Prabhu here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Madhuvan Prabhu. Is Salika Prabhu here?
Yeah. I'm with you. Just a second. I'm just trying to put the.
All right.
Just a second. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Jai, Nitya Swaram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam.
Jai, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Dandavat Pranam.
Jai, Maharaj. This is my humble obeisances. All glories to Krishna Prabhupada. All glories to you.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Have you become a Bhakti Vaibhava student?
Yes. I'm a teacher and I'm also a student.
I see. Okay. All right. Yeah, happy to have you in our class.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
So, we need to learn to teach.
Pardon me?
We need to learn before we teach.
That's true. That's true. The teacher is the best student, actually. To be a teacher, you must be the best student.
Exactly.
To teach means you must study, you must know to be able to offer something.
Yeah.
I always tell my students that actually, I'm not teaching, I'm learning.
Exactly.
I'm not teaching. It gives me an opportunity to learn.
Exactly. Yes.
Just because I'm teaching many courses, it is increasing my understanding, increasing my knowledge, increasing my realization like anything. It's a secret, actually. The secret of advancement is to teach.
Yeah.
You learn many things.
Exactly.
In one Bhakti Vedanta class, I was researching for something in Vrindavan. I was teaching about Bhakti Vedanta and I was researching for very important information. And I went to read the lifetime of Madhvacharya. And I was amazed what a wonderful Vaishnava Madhvacharya was. I learned many things from his life, just because I was trying to research for some material for a Bhaktivedanta class. At the end, I really gained a lot by reading the pastimes of Madhvacharya. So I think we are waiting for Salika Prabhu to share the screen. Normally in the Bhakti Vaibhava class, we begin the class by chanting the glories, the prayers of Sanatana Goswami, which are the glorification of the Srimad. So we've asked you to share that screen with that, so that we can recite it before we proceed with our classes. So
Okay, yeah, Maharaj. I was waiting for you to instruct me.
Okay, thank you. So And let me say some prayers for auspiciousness, then we start with this. Oh my Timeridasya Gyanan Ganashala Kayak Chachuram Litam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnastam Vitam Tam Sanjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitam Scha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Nitinamini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tadmani Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Nitinamini Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvise Sasunyavadi Pansachade Satarini Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauramakna Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Bukam Karoti Vachalam Pandum Lagayate Green Yatkri Patamahan Vande Shri Guru Dinam Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandala Karam Vyapta Ina Charataram Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to this morning Srimad-Bhagavatam class, Bhakti Vaibhava class. Today is our second day. And before we
Hare
Krishna chant the slokas, the prayers of Sanatana Goswami, glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam. I think if if you can, I don't know how possible, if you can change this font to Balaram font, if you can change to Balaram font, because the system is changing some of the words. I can see it has changed some of the words. Sarva Shastra Dimi. So is it possible to change to Balaram font?
It's actually in Balaram font. It's just that in each of every system it has its own version of Balaram. But after today, I will take time to edit and bring it back to what is that, but just manage today because I just opened the file.
Yeah. So these are the prayers of Sanatana Goswami. The first one, we chanted together, is Sarva Shastradi Piyusha Sarva Vidaika Salpala. So nectar from the ocean of all, rich mind, all conclusive. You are the only giver of life to all the world. Second one.
Sarva Bhagavata Prasha Srimad-Bhagavata Prabhu Ali Dwama Chicha Shekani Pravita Tipa.
All life and all the Supreme Lord devotees, all Master of Srimad-Bhagavatam. You are the light of the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Supreme. 3. Ramananda Kaya
Prema Vami Akanaya Be Savadi Sava Sivaya
Sri Krishna
Shri Krishna Namostume.
I bow down to you who are supremely blessed to read every syllable pause down prema described by everybody Sri Krishna himself. And 4, he said, Madheka Bandhu Matsangin Mat Mahadana Madhishtaraka Mad Bhagya Mat Anando Namostute, my only friend, my constant companion, to master my great wealth, my grateful ecstasy, I bow down to thee. Ati Agraha Namusta Kadamo Ahata Kanyoyasu. Master of goodness, constantly or exalt of the most wonderful in kindly appear in my heart and my voice with your God. Yeah, 5 prayers and glorify Srimad-Bhagavatam. If there is any way we can share with the students, all the students, so that they can all have it. So I can say before we recite the Bhagavatam, recite these prayers. That way, following us in glorification of the
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Observation Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
That's the background noise coming from Chitra Prabhu.
Yeah, it's because Marat suggested that everybody should muting up.
You should mute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. So I was saying that this prayer, Sanatana Goswami, should be shared with all the students. And before we start reading Bhagavatam, we should actually recite these prayers. They give a better understanding why we should study Srimad-Bhagavatam. These 5 prayers coined by Sanatana Goswami give us a prelude. It gives us the background why one should study Srimad-Bhagavatam. So therefore, we encourage every student to get a copy of these prayers and recite it every time we have to study Srimad-Bhagavatam. So from today onwards, before we start our class, we will always recite it. So yesterday, we touched upon 3 very, very important verses. The first 3 verses of the Srimad-Bhagavatam first canto are very important because those 3 verses actually summarizes the whole philosophy of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Though they are very technical, the first verse, for instance, Jarmadi Yasya Yataha, is a very technical verse, and even for the memory of the students, because that verse is a compulsory verse. It's the most difficult verse to remember amongst the verses that we have to study. I can say when I was doing my Bhakti Vaibhava, it was the most difficult verse for me to remember because it's so long. So some were able to do it immediately, but I gave other verses and I had to go through it again and again and again until I had mastered it well before I deliver it. So, but the 3 verses, verse 1, 2, and 3, summarizes the whole Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Jarmanadi Asya Yata Inyavat, Itarastas Charateshu Abhigyaswarat, Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adi Kavaye, Muhyanti Yasurayaha, Tejo Vari Mridam, Yata Vinimayo, Yatra Tri Sargo Mrishaha, Dharma Swena Sada Nirashta, Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. This verse summarizes the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam. And then the next verse, which is verse 2, also talks about Dharma Prajita Kaitava Tra Paramo Nima Sharanam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapod Traya Mulanam Srimad-Bhagavate Mahamuni Kritikim Vaparai Ishwaraha Sadhu Hiridi Avarujyate Tra Kritibir Sushruvistat Shanahat. This is also a very important verse because it gives us the clue of the type of religion, the type of philosophy, the type of theology that the Srimad-Bhagavatam entails. And then the third verse, Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam shukamukam amrita drava samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasham alayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhuvakaha. This one is an invitation. It's inviting the students. It's inviting people who want to drink the nectar, the sweetness of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So these three verses are the foundation. They are the pillars of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And for us to understand Srimad-Bhagavatam, we must digest these three verses very well. So I will urge all of you to find some time to read the purports of these verses very, very meticulously, very carefully, because Prabhupada has loaded these purports with so much information because they form the foundation of Srimad-Bhagavatam. To actually succeed in our Bhagavad Dharma or in our Bhakti Vaibhava, one must have a grips of these three verses. So the teacher is not able to break the whole thing down because we have to rush the whole topic. For instance, today we have 19 verses to cover in 2 hours. So you cannot delay too much, otherwise time will beat you. So because of that, the students, they either have to read ahead of time or they have to read after the class in order to fill the gaps. Those areas the teacher jumps over, the students must read so that they can fill in the gap. So please take time to read these three verses over and over again, make notes. If you grasp what is in the purpose of these three verses, you will understand Srimad-Bhagavatam in totality. And then we begin with today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Narachaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat Nashtaprayesu Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. So in 1.5 hours, we should complete this section. So we are beginning with verse 4. And verse 4 says, Naimishi Nimisha Kshetre Risaya Sunakadaya Shatram Swargaya Lokaya Sahasra Samam Ashataha. Translation. Once in a holy place, in the forest of Naimisaranya, great sages headed by the sage Sunaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. I'll read maybe 2 paragraphs from the purport. The prelude of Srimad-Bhagavatam was spoken in the previous 3 slokas. I just said that. The prelude, the summary, the foundation of Srimad-Bhagavatam is spoken in the 3 verses, 1, 2, and 3. Now the main topic of this great literature is being presented. Srimad-Bhagavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, was repeated for the 2nd time at Naimisaranya. So, Shukadeva Goswami is a disciple of Shukadeva Goswami because when Shukadeva Goswami spoke the Srimad-Bhagavatam in the assembly of many sages, munis, brahmanas, and so on, Sutta Goswami happened to be there. when Shukadeva Goswami was speaking Srimad-Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, who was cursed to die in 7 days, there was no time for anything else except the most important thing. So Parikshit Maharaj had no other except hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. And while Shukadeva Goswami was speaking Srimad-Bhagavatam, there were many, many people present. And one of the people who were present is Shuta Goswami. So Shuta Goswami heard the Srimad-Bhagavatam while Maharaj was being instructed by Shukadeva Goswami. And so Shukadeva Goswami is now, Shuta Goswami is now being requested by the sages in Namaserenya to narrate what he has heard from Shukadeva Goswami. So this verse is saying, once in a holy place in the forest of Namaserenya, great sages headed by the sage Sunaka assembled to perform a great 1,000-year sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Lord and his devotees. So the sages have gathered in Namaserenya and they want to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice because Kali Yuga was about to start. When Krishna left the planet, Kali Yuga began. So therefore, the sages, they knew that Kali Yuga is a very terrible age. And so many inauspicious things are going to happen. So for the welfare of the people in general and for the satisfaction of Krishna, the sages, they gathered in the forest of Naimisaranya in northern India to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice. And while they had gathered to perform this 1,000-year sacrifice, then Shuta Goswami came there. It's like after Parikshit Maharaj had heard the Srimad-Bhagavatam in 7 days and had left his body, Shuta Goswami left that assembly. Actually, everybody departed and went their own directions. So Shuta Goswami happened to arrive in the forest of Naimisaranya, where a group of sages had gathered to perform a great welfare work for the benefit of everyone. So here it is said that the Srimad-Bhagavatam, after its first recitation by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, was repeated for the second time at Naimisaranya. In the Vaibhava Tantra, it is said that Brahma, the engineer of this particular universe, contemplated a great wheel which could enclose the universe. The hub of this great circle was fixed at a particular place known as Naimisaranya. Similarly, there is another reference to the forest of Naimisaranya in the Varaha Purana, where it is stated that by performance of sacrifice at this place, the strength of demonic people is curtailed. Thus, Brahmanas prefer Naimisaranya for such sacrificial performances. So, Naimisaranya is a very important place. Once Lord Brahma wanted to perform some sacrifice, and he wanted to perform that sacrifice in the center of the universe. And so it is said that he threw a hop, and the hop landed at this Naimisaranya. And so that place is the center of the universe. And so Brahma performed his sacrifice there. So the sages, they have gathered in the same place to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice for the pleasure of Krishna and for the pleasure of the devotees and for the benefit of the entire human society. So the importance of Namisrinya is highlighted here, just like Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is also said to be a place where demigods even come to perform sacrifices. So Kurukshetra is a very holy place, and that's why Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita there. The whole Bhagavad Gita that was spoken 5,000 years ago was spoken in Kurukshetra. And that makes it a much more holy place also. So even till today, people go to the place of Kurukshetra to perform different sacrifices, to perform different austerities. Especially during the period of Gita Jayanti. Gita Jayanti, many people go to Kurukshetra to recite the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam Gita. Actually, ISKCON, they have a very beautiful temple there now. And every year, devotees gather there in December to chant the whole Bhagavad Gita with fire sacrifice. So Namisrenya is also such a holy place, selected by Brahma himself. And so the sages have gathered there, and they are about to perform a welfare activity for the benefit of the entire world. So in the purpose of Prabhupada mentions that the devotees of Lord Vishnu offer all kinds of sacrifices for his pleasure. The devotees are always attached to the service of the Lord, whereas fallen souls are attached to the pleasures of the material existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that anything performed in the material world for any reason other than for the pleasure of the Lord causes further bondage for the performer. It is enjoined, therefore, that all acts must be performed sacrificially for satisfaction of Vishnu and his devotees. This will bring everyone peace and prosperity. So, performing activities for Krishna's pleasure should be our goal. Actually, it is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Amendriya Priti Vancha Tare Bali Karma, Krishna Diriya Priti Icha Dare Premanama. That a desire to gratify one's own senses is karma, lust. But the same desire performed or to please the senses of Krishna is called love or prema. So any activities that we engage in, which is meant for our sense enjoyment, brings bondage. And any activity that we engage for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead brings liberation. So the great sages, they have gathered here, not because they want to do something for themselves, but because they want to do something for the pleasure of Krishna and the benefit of the entire world. The great sages are always anxious to do good to the people in general. Such sages, headed by Sunaka Rishi, assembled in a holy place, Namisrenya, with the goal of performing a great continuous chain of sacrifices for the benefit of everyone. There are the sincere friends of all living entities, and at great risk and personal inconvenience, they are engaged in the service of the Lord and his devotees. It is said that anything done for the Lord is actually done for all living entities. Krishna is the root of every living entity. Krishna is a root Mama Ivam Sojiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Every living entity is related to Krishna. Every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, when we do great things for Krishna, when we do things for Krishna, every living entity benefits. Just like when you water a tree. If you water a tree, what happens? The whole tree, the plants, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, everything benefits from that watering. So therefore, because Krishna is the root of everyone, when we do service for the pleasure of Krishna, every living entity benefits. So one must do something for the benefit of all living entities. And that means doing something for Krishna's pleasure. It is therefore the duty of every living entity to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others, with his life, with his wealth, with his intelligence, and with his words. This is a statement from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, that one should perform welfare work which will benefit others, with his life, with his wealth, with his intelligence, with his words. Actually, by satisfying Krishna, one satisfies every living entity. By satisfying Krishna, who is the source of all living entities, one actually satisfies every living entity. So the secret of life is to try to please Krishna. So the sages of the forest of Nam and Serenia, they engage in performing 1,000-year fire sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we shall go to the next verse. We cannot read the whole purport. If we do that, time will go against us. So the next verse says, At ikadatu munaya prata huta huta naya sakritam shutam ashinam prapachuridam adarat. One day after finishing their morning duties by burning a sacrificial fire and offering a seat of esteem to Sutta Goswami, the great sages made inquiries with great respect about the following matters. In the purpose of Prabhupada writes, morning is the best time to hold spiritual services. The great sages offer the speaker of the Bhagavatam an elevated seat of respect called the Vyasasa, or the seat of Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva is the original spiritual preceptor for all men, and all other preceptors are considered to be his representatives. A representative is one who can exactly present the viewpoint of Srila Vyasadeva. Sri Vyasadeva impregnated the message of Bhagavatam onto Srila Sukadeva Goswami, and Srila Sutta Goswami heard it from him, Sukadeva Goswami. All bona fide representatives of Sri Vyasadeva in the chain of disciplic succession are to be understood to be Goswamis. These Goswamis restrain all their senses, and they stick to the path made by the previous acharyas. The Goswamis do not deliver lectures on the Bhagavatam capriciously. Rather, they execute their services most carefully, following the predecessors who delivered spiritual message unbroken to them. So here we see that as soon as Sutta Goswami arrived in the assembly of these sages who are performing their 1,000-year sacrifice, they immediately offered him a seat and that is this called the Vyasasana. So anybody who sits on that seat is actually representing Srila Vyasadeva. And in order to represent Srila Vyasadeva, one has to be knowledgeable. That is what he said here. It is that Srila Vyasadeva impregnated the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam to his great son, Srila Shukadeva Goswami. And Shuta Goswami was present when Shukadeva Goswami imparted that knowledge to Parikshit Maharaj. And so he absorbed that knowledge deeply. And now the sages of Naima Serenya, they are asking Sutta Goswami to repeat the same message he heard from Shukadeva Goswami. We all know the story of Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami did not want to come out of his mother's womb because he was afraid that Kali Yuga is arriving and he would be contaminated by the effects of Kali Yuga. So he did not want to come out because there was Dwapara Yuga, they were in Dwapara Yuga. So Vyasadeva had to invite Krishna to come to speak to Shukadeva in the mother's womb. And Shri Krishna told Shukadeva Goswami that he should come out. But when he comes out, he should just speak Bhagavatam. He should just narrate Bhagavatam. He should just associate with Srimad-Bhagavatam. And if he associates with Srimad-Bhagavatam, the influence of Kali, the influence of contamination will not touch him. However, when Shukadeva Goswami emerged from his mother's womb, he took sannyas. He took renunciation. So he just left without even performing the samskaras. Normally at a time, some samskaras are to be performed. So Shukadeva Goswami did not even wait for those samskaras. Immediately he left. And his father was running after him, crying, oh my son, please come back so that I can have the opportunity to perform these samskaras. And I can have the opportunity to educate you with Srimad Bhagavatam. When Shukadeva would not listen, he just left. So Vyasadeva has to devise a means to bring Shukadeva back. So Vyasadeva had many disciples at the time of the birth of Shukadeva Goswami. So Vyasadeva sent some of the disciples to go to the forest where Shukadeva was residing, and they should recite Srimad Bhagavatam very loudly to the hearing of Shukadeva Goswami. And so these disciples, they went and pitched a camp next to Shukadeva Goswami, and every day they're reciting Srimad Bhagavatam very loudly. And when Shukadeva Goswami heard the Bhagavatam, he became attracted. He asked the disciples, where do you learn this from? Where can I get some? Where can I hear this, the whole story of Srimad Bhagavatam? And they said, come with us. Our guru, he is the teacher of this knowledge. So if you come with us, our guru will give you this knowledge. So Shukadeva Goswami followed the disciples of Srila Vyasadeva back to the ashram of Srila Vyasadeva. And it was then Srila Vyasadeva imparted this knowledge. Srila Vyasadeva impregnated his heart with this knowledge. And eventually he came before Parikshit Maharaj and delivered Parikshit Maharaj from the clutches of death by speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that assembly, Sutta Goswami was there. So, so Papa also mentioned in the beginning of the purport, morning is the best time to hold spiritual services. So that is why Srila Prabhupada has designed our daily program beginning at 4:30. As we all know, that the day is divided into 3 sections. A section is in the mode of goodness, a section is in the mode of passion, and a section in the mode of ignorance. The section which is controlled by goodness is said to be the best section for spiritual activities. and that is the morning section. He said 1 hour before sunrise, that is called Muhurta hour. One should rise up and begin spiritual activities. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada instituted that at 4:30 a.m., we must start the auspicious activity of Mangalarati, worshiping the deities and singing songs for their pleasure. So, performing morning duties of lighting sacrificial fire is necessary for the sadhaka. And for us, that sacrificial fire is the holy name. The fire of the holy name is very crucial in the age of Kali. Anyone who wants to be purified, anyone who wants to be free from the falls of Kali Yuga, he must take shelter of the holy name of Krishna. So, and that is why every morning we are all chanting Hare Krishna. That is the sacrificial fire we are performing every day. That is the number one morning duty that we are performing every day. One should offer some arati to the deities, and then right after that, one should sit down and perform this sacrifice of the holy name. I don't know, any comment or question before we move on to this?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Madhu.
So when you mention 1,000 years of fire sacrifice, that's not possible in Kali Yoga. So probably, is it done in Satya Yoga? Because people live longer in those days.
Yeah, in Kali Yoga, that's not possible. Only in Dwarapa Yoga, this is possible. In Dwarapa Yoga, they were living 1,000 years. And in Kali Yoga, we are living 100 years. In Treta Yoga, they were living 10,000 years. And in Satya Yoga, they were living 100,000 years. So only in Dwarapa Yoga, they could sit for 1,000 years and chant mantras and do yajna. But in Kali Yoga, our lifespans are too short. And therefore, the holy name, the sacrifice of the holy name is recommended for us because of our short lives. Actually, along the line, I think verse 10 of this chapter, it describes the most fortunate and the most unfortunate situation in Kali Yuga. And then thereafter, it speaks about chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So for this age, because our lifespans are so short, we need a more effective means. And the most effective means of deliverance is Krishna Nam, the names of Krishna, because it gives us direct association with Krishna, especially when we chant without any offense. We can experience the presence of Krishna in his name. So this is the sacrifice for this age.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So we move to, yes, text 6.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, so I wanted to ask a follow-up question to that question.
Okay.
The question was that the time of the sacrifice, 1,000 year sacrifice, it is said that at the end, at the tail end of the Kali Dwapara Yuga, or at the end of Kali Yuga, when Krishna left the planet, then Srimad-Bhagavatam was spoken to help the dark, dense age of Kali. So I'm finding it very difficult to understand what time in between, because if Kali Dwapara Yuga has ended and we're set into Kali Yuga, So where was that 1,000 years gotten from? Because the narration depicts as if the sacrifice of 1,000 years sacrifice was done just at the end of Dwarapa Yuga. So please kindly clarify.
Yeah, the understanding is that actually the sages are already gathered there and they are doing their yagya. It's not that they are waiting for Sutta Goswami. They already started their yagya. There is no specific moment given when they started, but they've already started their yagya and is meant to go for 1,000 years. So exactly when it was started is not mentioned. But we should also remember there is what is called Yuga Sandhyas. Between the ages, there is a period which is a transition period between Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga. There is a Yuga Sandhya. There is a transition period. Between Treta Yuga and Dwarapa Yuga, there is a Yuga Sandhya. There is a transition period. And between Dwarapa Yuga and Kali Yuga, there is a Sandhya Yuga, a Yuga Sandhya. There is a conjunction, there is a transition between Dwarapa Yuga and Kali Yuga. So within that period, there's also a specific time given. Some of the Puranas describe how long each of these Yuga Sandhyas take. The Yuga Sandhya between Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga is longer than that between Dwarapa Yuga and Kali Yuga. But each of them have their length, their period of time. So that must also be considered when we are talking about this sacrifice, because there was this Sandhya, this Yuga Sandhya, the conjunction between the two Yugas, which when the Dwarapa Yuga is finished and now is migrating into Kali Yuga, and there is a period of time given. And so all that has to be calculated. But the point is that the sages had already started their yagya during the period of Dwarapa, because they knew that Kali Yuga is coming. And so they had to prepare for the ill effects of Kali Yuga. And so therefore they started this 1,000-year sacrifice. So that by the time Kali Yuga arrives, they have established some potent, some purification, some auspicious things that can counteract the effect of Kali Yuga. So it is not that the yagya was done in Kali Yuga. It was done before the beginning of Kali Yuga.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased with the answer.
Thank you. So if there's no other question, we proceed to text 6. So text 6, actually text 5, some points need to be taken note of. Okay, text 6 is text 6. Text 6, it says, Rishaya Uchur, Twaya Kalo Puranani, Seti Hasani Chananga, Akyai Tani Api Aditani, Dharma Shastrani Yani Utaha. The sage said, respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in all the scriptures, famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and the histories as well. For you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So the purpose of the proper rights, a Goswami or the bona fide representative of Sri Vyasadeva must be free from all kinds of vices. The 4 major vices of Kali Yuga are: 1, illicit connection with women; 2, animal slaughter; 3, intoxication; 4, speculative gambling of all sorts; A Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasan. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasan who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above mentioned vices. He not only should be free from all such vices, but must also be well versed in all revealed scriptures or in the Vedas. The Puranas are also parts of the Vedas, and histories like the Mahabharata or Ramayana are also part of the Vedas. The Acharya or the Goswami must be well acquainted with all these literatures to hear and explain them more important than reading them. To hear and explain them is more important than reading them. One can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. Hearing is called Shravana, explaining is called Kirtan. The two processes of Shravana and Kirtan are of primary importance to progressive spiritual life. Only one who has properly grasped the transcendental knowledge from the right source by submissive hearing can properly explain the subject. So, the sages glorifying Sutta Goswami. Actually, this verse is the sages are praising 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8, the sages are praising Sutta Goswami. So in this verse, they are saying, Anaga, say, Traya Kalo Puranani, Seti Hasani Chananga. Anaga means one who is free from all vices. And the purpose of Prabhupada says, for somebody to represent Srila Vyasadeva to sit on the Vyasasan, one must be free from these vices: illicit connection with women, animal slaughter, intoxication, speculative gambling of all sorts. So he says that one who is free from all these vices, one must be free from all these vices before he can dare to sit on the Vyasasan. So the Vyasasan is the seat of Srila Vyasadeva. The Vyasasan is a very exalted place, and therefore it should only be given to people who have such sublime character as mentioned here. He must be Ananga. He must be free from all vices. And then in addition to that, he has to be Aditani, Akyantani. Akyatani, Api Aditani. Aditani, Akyatani means he must be well versed in the scriptures, he must be well versed in the Puranas, and he must be well versed in the Itihasas, the histories. And he should be in a position to explain them. So, besides being free from vices, which is a prerequisite for a speaker of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the fellow has to be well versed in the scriptures. He has to be well versed in the Puranas. He has to be well versed in the Itihasas. And should be able to explain them very nicely. So that is a qualification that Sutta Goswami has. And the sages are highlighting on that. They are glorifying him for that. In the purpose of proper rights, to hear and explain them is more important than just reading them. So hearing the scripture and explaining them is more important than just reading. And then he says, one can assimilate the knowledge of the revealed scriptures only by hearing and explaining. So this process of hearing and explaining is the way by which one can assimilate these revealed scriptures. So it says hearing is called Shravana and explaining is called Kirtana. So Aditani, Akiatani. Aditani means to be very well versed in the scriptures, and Akiatani means to explain them very nicely. So both things are necessary for a preacher of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So we are studying the Srimad-Bhagavatam so that we can actually come to this platform of Adityani and Akiatyani. We can become well versed in the scriptures, and we can also be able to explain them very nicely to our audience. So this is very important. We'll go to the next verse, which is verse 7. It continues with the glorification of Sutta Goswami by the sages. It says, Yani Veda Vidam Sresto Bhagavan Vadrayanaha Anye Chamunaya Sutta Paravara Vido Viduhu. Translation. Being the elders learned Vedantis, O Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. In the purpose of Prabhupada writes, Srimad-Bhagavatam is a natural commentation on the Brahma Sutra or the Badarayani Vedanta Sutras. It is called natural because Vyasadeva is author of both the Vedanta Sutras and the Srimad-Bhagavatam, or the essence of all Vedic literatures. Besides Vyasadeva, there are other sages who are the authors of 6 different philosophical systems, namely Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Patanjali, Jaimini, and Astavakra. Theism is explained completely in the Vedanta Sutra, whereas in other systems of philosophical speculation, practically no mention is given to the ultimate cause of all causes. One can sit on the Vyasasana only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy, so that one can present fully the theistic views of the Bhagavatam in defiance of all other systems. Srila Goswami was the proper teacher, and therefore the sages at Naima Serenya elevated him to the Vyasasana. Srila Vyasadeva is designated here as the personality of Godhead because he is the authorized, empowered incarnation. So, yesterday we were discussing that Srila Vyasadeva, it is a position, the position of Vyasadeva. It is occupied by different personalities, like the position of Brahma. But this particular Vyasadeva is an incarnation, is a literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In every Dwarapa Yuga, there is a Vyasadeva. In every Dwarapa Yuga, there is a Vyasadeva. There are actually said this Vyasadeva is the 28th Vyasadeva. Many others have come and gone. What is his name? Brihaspati, Indra, Gautama, Vashista, Parasara, Bharadraj, Sukracharya. All of them have become Vyasadevas. And each of them always divide the Vedas according to the level of awareness of the people of the time. But this Vyasadeva, because he is a literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wrote the Vedanta Sutra and the Srimad-Bhagavatam. The other Vyasadevas, they simply divided the Vedas. And in the next Dwarapa Yuga, the next Vyasadeva is already in the waiting, and that is Aswatthama. Aswatthama is the next Vyasadeva. He's in the waiting for the next Satya Yuga, and the next Dwarapa Yuga. It is said that Aswatthama, because he murdered those 5 children on Draupadi, Krishna punished him by giving him a long life. He's living through the whole of Kali Yuga, and he will live through the whole period of Satya Yuga, and then Treta Yuga, and then in Dwarapa Yuga, he will become the next Vyasadeva. He will also divide the Vedas according to time, place, and circumstance. So, but this particular Vyasadeva is an incarnation. It's a literary incarnation. Actually, some places they say, the scripture says, it's a Satya Vesh avatar. He is empowered incarnation of the Lord for compiling the Vedic literatures. So because he is non-different from Krishna, that's why he's able to write the Vedanta Sutra, which is the cream of all the Vedic literatures, and the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the cream of the Vedanta Sutras. So because a special Vyasadeva, an incarnation of the Lord, then he's able to do this. So it said in the opening, Prabhupada writes, Srimad-Bhagavatam is a natural commentation on the Brahma Sutra, or the Vedanta Sutra, or the Bhadrayani Vedanta Sutras. So because Vyasadeva is the author of both the Vedanta Sutra and Srimad-Bhagavatam. But one point in the verse, and that talks about the position of Sutta Goswami.
Device is connected
Vedam Shvetaha. Vedam Shvetaha. Yani Vedam Shvetaha. It means you are the elders. You are the elders amongst us, and you are the most learned Vedantists. You know the knowledge of Vyasadeva and other sages. So it is actually mentioned that when Parikshit Maharaj, he arrived on the banks of the Ganga, looking for a solution to his problem. A man who is about to die, what does he need to hear? What does he need to do? Those were the questions on the mind of Parikshit. So many sages had gathered because the news had gone far and wide, even across different planetary systems, that the king, Parikshit, the emperor of the earth planet, had been cursed to die in 7 days. News had gone everywhere, and great sages have gathered to witness this wonderful event. And so different sages were recommending different things to Parikshit Maharaj. So here it is mentioned that Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. So the sages that gathered around Parikshit Maharaj, who was about to leave the world, there were different categories of sages. Some were well-versed in knowledge of the physical world. Some were well-versed in the knowledge of metaphysical subtle sciences, different knowledge. But Shukadeva Goswami, he was well-versed in the science of the Supreme. And therefore, he actually gave the solution to the question that Parikshit Maharaj was asking. What does a man who is about to die, what should he think of and what should he do? Shukadeva Goswami gave that answer because he is a devotee, an exalted devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The other munis, the other sages, they may not necessarily be devotees of Krishna, but they are also exalted in their own areas. So, by Suta Goswami, it says that he is equipped, is acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, as well as he was well versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. And the purpose of Prabhupada mentioned the 6 different philosophical systems: Gautama, Kanada, Kapila, Patanjali, Jaimini, and Astavakra. These are the 6 different types of philosophies that are in the world, and people learn these philosophies, and they also preach them. So Suta Goswami was in knowledge of the teachings of Gautama, he was in knowledge of the teachings of Kanada, he was in knowledge of the teachings of Kapila, he was in knowledge of the teachings of Patanjali, he was in knowledge of the teachings of Jaimini, and he was in knowledge of the teachings of Astavakra. And so he became a qualified teacher to sit on the Vyasasana and speak the knowledge of the Vedas, the knowledge of Srimad-Bhagavatam to the assembly of sages. If there is no question, we move on to the next verse, verse 8.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question, please.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, so you mentioned that as Vatama, you will become the next Vyasadeva.
Yes.
I'm surprised that how can a sinner of this caliber
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
that
Yes. Well, you know, because of the austerity, he is going to perform a lot of austerity. Can you imagine? Kali Yuga is 432,000 years.
Yes.
And Aswatthama is walking on earth. He's around. Actually, last year, or 2 years ago, there was a picture of him. Somebody took a picture of him in the Himalayas, and they were spreading it on the social media. So that austerity of being in Kali Yuga for 332,000 years will purify him. Actually, it is said that when the devotee curses a person, or when the Supreme Personality of Godhead curses a person, that curse is actually a blessing in disguise. So Krishna punished him. Krishna cursed him to live the whole of Kali Yuga. It's a curse, but actually it's a blessing in disguise. So he will get purified of the 332,000 years of austerities, and that will qualify him to become the next Vyasadeva.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So can we move on to text 7? I will give the devotees a homework. So take note of this. Do a research on the different philosophies, the 6 different philosophies. Do a research. What is the philosophy of Gautama? What is the philosophy of Kanada? What is the philosophy of Kapila? I think that one is very easy to find. Kapila Devi taught the Sankhya philosophy. What is the philosophy of Patanjali? That is also very easy to find. He taught the Yoga Vasistas. And the philosophy of Jaimini and the philosophy of Astavakra. That is the homework for all students. Today, find out what is the philosophy, just a summary of Gautama's philosophy, the summary of Kanada's philosophy, the summary of Kapila's philosophy, the summary of Patanjali's philosophy, the summary of Jaimini's philosophy, and the summary of Astavakra's philosophy. Tomorrow we'll ask everybody to say something about this. So please, homework. I think Rasavan Prabhu's hand is up. Can you unmute and ask your question?
Bishop Baraj.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay, thank you very much for this wonderful class. But my question is, if the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the essence of all spiritual knowledge. Why did the Lord choose to bother our mind so much with the philosophies coming from Gautama, Kanada, Pantajali, Jaimini, Astavakra, and all those? Why not straight to the Srimad-Bhagavatam? And from yesterday, we heard that the Srimad-Bhagavatam can save everyone, no matter what his situation, the hearer, the speaker, and then even the question. So why all these big marks of the same Lord?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, human beings are human beings, because influenced by the three modes of material nature. We do not have the same understanding of issues. So therefore, these philosophies are there to satisfy the different levels of awareness and different levels of consciousness. But we are to understand them because some of them may be presenting a tasting viewpoint. So we study it not because we need them, we don't need them, but because we would encounter people who are deep in this area of this kind of knowledge. We will encounter people who are studying Gautama Muni's philosophy, Kananda's philosophy, Kapila Muni's philosophy, Patanjali's philosophy, Jaimini's philosophy, and Asvatthakara's philosophy. And therefore, when we know what their philosophy stands for, we can easily use the knowledge of Bhagavatam to defeat them. So that is why it is necessary to, that's why I said theism is explained completely in the Vedanta Sutras, whereas in other systems of philosophical speculations, practically no mention is given to the ultimate cause of all causes. So one can sit on the Vyasasana only after being conversant in all systems of philosophy, so that one can present fully the theistic viewpoints of the Srimad-Bhagavatam in defiance of all other systems. So the purpose of knowing this is to know what they stand for, and then we can use this philosophy of Srimad-Bhagavatam to defeat and establish theism strongly, because we are going to encounter people who will bring up all this kind of philosophy. So it is not actually meant for the consumption of the devotee, but it's actually meant, we study it just to be able to know what they stand for, and we can now use the Bhagavatam to smash them, use the Bhagavatam to clear them. So that is why these philosophies are there. But because of the different levels of consciousness, different types of people, different modes of ignorance and passion and all, these kind of different philosophies are there for the different living entities. But the ultimate philosophy is Srimad-Bhagavatam. And therefore, we use the Srimad-Bhagavatam to defeat all these different types of philosophy people may present. And that is why we need to know what they stand for. Okay, thank you very much. We will move to text 7 or 8, text 8. Text 8 says, Ve tatvam somya tat sarvam tatva tat anugrahat bruyo snigdasya sisasya guravo guyam api utaha. Translation, and because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. Purport: the secret of success in spiritual life is in satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has sung in his famous 8 stanzas on the spiritual masters as follows. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Only by his satisfaction can one please the personality of Godhead. And when he is satisfied, and when he is dissatisfied, there is only havoc on the path of spiritual realization. It is essential, therefore, that a disciple be very much obedient and submissive to the bona fide spiritual master. So Sutta Goswami fulfilled all these qualifications as a disciple, and therefore he was endowed with all favors by his learned and self-realized spiritual masters, such as Srila Vyasadeva and others. The sages of Naimesarenja were confident that Srila Sutta Goswami was bona fide, therefore they were anxious to hear from him. So, it is said that Guru Lakshana, Siksha Lakshana. Guru Lakshana means the duties of the spiritual master, the activities of the spiritual master, the responsibilities of the spiritual master. And Siksha Lakshana means the duties of the disciple, the position of the disciple. Lord Chaitanya informs Sanatana Goswami, you should write a book that should describe the characteristics of the bona fide spiritual master and a bona fide disciple. Before accepting a spiritual master, one can be assured of the spiritual master's position. Similarly, before accepting a disciple, one must also know the position of the disciple. This is called Guru Lakshana and Siksha Lakshana. The Guru must be bona fide and the disciple must be bona fide. In fact, it is said, it is very easy to find a bona fide spiritual master, but it's not very easy to find a bona fide disciple. But for the success of spiritual life, both things are necessary. The spiritual master must be bona fide and the disciple must be bona fide. Why is it that the spiritual master accepts so many disciples, but out of the many disciples, few of them actually become empowered? Few of them actually they stand out. Why? Because they have accepted the spiritual master as bona fide and they have done everything possible to please him. And that's what Prabhupada writes, the secret of success in spiritual life is in satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. We cannot make any progress in Krishna consciousness without the blessings of the spiritual master. That disciple who receives unlimited blessings of the spiritual master will make unlimited advancement. And that disciple who ignores the spiritual master, who does not want to serve the spiritual master, will struggle on in spiritual life. And this is what we have seen. Anyone who is standing out in his spiritual life, it means he has sincerely served the spiritual master to his satisfaction, and the spiritual master has given him his blessings. Srila Prabhupada embraced Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and told him, your life is successful. Why? Why Srila Prabhupada did not embrace any other disciple except Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj? Because he sacrificed his life to please Srila Prabhupada. So the more we try to please the spiritual master, the more we get his blessings and the more we make advancement on the spiritual path. So Sutta Goswami has satisfied his spiritual master, and as a result, he was endowed with all the necessary knowledge and empowerment. And now the sages of Naimesarenja, they have They are eager to hear from him. They recognize him as the most qualified to speak Srimad-Bhagavatam. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, so cham tapas tik tik shamcha mona swadhyayam arjavam brahmacharyam ahinsam cha samatvam dvandva samgyayo. To serve the spiritual master, the disciple should learn cleanliness, austerity, tolerance, silence, study of Vedic knowledge, simplicity, the practice of celibacy, non-violence, equanimity in the face of material dualities such as heat and cold, happiness and distress. So these are the means by which one can actually approach the spiritual master. He must be clean, he must be austere, he must be tolerant, he must practice silence. Silence means only speaking about Krishna. He must be engaged in the study of the scriptures. This is called Swadhyaya. He must be simple. He must regulate his sex life. He must be non-violent, and he has to practice equanimity in the face of dualities. And so what we are doing now is Swadhyayam. We are studying the Vedic scriptures. It is one of the ways by which we can please our spiritual master. And the spiritual master is pleased to see the disciples studying the Vedic scriptures because it means they are becoming very firm. Without knowledge, we can only speculate. Without knowledge, we can only depend on our emotions. Without knowledge, we are not rooted in the philosophy. So by studying the Vedic scriptures, by this process of Swadhyaya, we are becoming very firm in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And the spiritual master is very pleased. And therefore he blesses such a soul. It is said, one has to be gentle, one has to be pure, one has to be simple, one has to be honest, then one can receive the spiritual master's blessings. One has to be submissive, then one can receive the spiritual master's blessings. And that is what Sutta Goswami has received here, and therefore he becomes the most qualified to speak to the sages who are gathered in the forest of Naimisaranya. Time is not on our side, it's already 9 o'clock. We only have some 30 minutes to go. So I have to move to text 9. Actually, from text 9, this chapter is entitled Questions by the Sages. So far, we have not come across any question. So from text 9, we are going to come across the questions. The 6 questions. So we must know these 6 questions. In your closed book exam, you will come across these closed book, list the 6 questions, of the sages of Naimisaranya. So we have to we have to give attention to these 6 questions. We should identify the 6 questions. So beginning from verse 9, the first question comes. It says, Tatra gyasa yusman bhavatayat visnis chitam sam etatata sreyas tanna samsitum arasi. Translation. Please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. Please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. So in a brief, we can say, what is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? That's the first question. This is the first question. What is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general. Please take note of these questions. So in the purpose of proper rights, in the Bhagavad Gita, worship of the Acharya is recommended. The Acharyas and the Goswamis are always absorbed in thought of the well-being of the general public, especially the spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being is automatically followed by material well-being. The Acharyas therefore give direction in spiritual well-being for people in general. Foreseeing the incompetencies of the people in this age of Kali, or the Iron Age of Coral, the sages requested that Sutta Goswami give a summary of all revealed scriptures because the people of this age are condemned in every respect. The sages therefore inquired of the absolute good, which is the ultimate good for the people. The condemned state of affairs of the people of this age is described as follows. So that is the next verse. So because Kali Yuga is approaching and many bad things are going to happen. So the sages, who are the well-wishers of everyone, they are asking Sutta Goswami, what is the ultimate, what is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? That is what they want to hear from Sutta Goswami. So we'll move on to text 10. Text 10. And text 10, I guess, is one of your memory verses. It says, Prayinal Panyusha Sabya Kalo Asmin Yoge Janaha Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagyahi Upadrutaha. O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So you see the reason why the sages are asking that question. The sages are asking Sutta Goswami, what is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? Because in Kali Yuga, the people are short-lived. So if their lives are so short, they will not have enough time to go through many, many scriptures and many, many philosophies. So just tell us the essence of everything. And because they are quarrelsome, people are quarrelsome, they have no time for anything good, they're always quarreling. So the little time they have, give them the essence. They're lazy. If you have lazy people who do not want to work, then you have to give them something very simple, something very straight, the essence of everything. And because they're always misguided, in Kali Yuga, people are easily misguided. So such misguided people, they don't have time for anything. And they are unlucky. And above all, they are always disturbed. These are what we are witnessing today. This was spoken 5,000 years back. But today, we can see all of these things happening. So Srila Prabhupada writes, I'll just read the first paragraph. The devotees of the Lord are always anxious for the spiritual improvement of the general public. When the sages of Naima and Serenya analyzed the state of affairs of the people in this age of Kali, they foresaw that men will live short lives. In Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened, not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on others' mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. So, the sages, they have the vision to see what is going to happen in Kali Yuga. And therefore, they are steering the discussion in their interest for their welfare. So they are asking Sutta Goswami to narrate the essence of all scriptures so that even in our fallen situation, we can still have the benefit of the essence of everything. So we move on to text 11. Text 11. Text 11 says, Burni Buri Karmani Shota Vyani Vibhagasaha Ata Sado Trayat Sharam Samudritya Manisha Saya Ruhi Badraya Bhutanam Yenatma Suprasi Dati. Translation. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instructions their hearts may be fully satisfied. So you see, so he says, explain the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings. That is the question 2. Question 2 is the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings. Take note. The essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings. What is the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings? So, Prabhupada writes in the purport, Atma or self is distinguished from matter and material elements. It is spiritual in constitution, and thus it is never satisfied by any amount of material planning. All scriptures and spiritual instructions are meant for the satisfaction of this self or Atma. There are many varieties of approaches which are recommended for different types of living beings in different times at different places. Consequently, the numbers of revealed scriptures are innumerable. There are different methods, prescribed duties recommended in these various scriptures. Taking into consideration the fallen condition of the people in general in this age of Kali, the sages of Naima and Serena suggested that Sri Sutta Goswami relate the essence of all such scriptures, because in this age, it is not possible for the fallen souls to understand and undergo all the lessons of all these various scriptures in Varna and Ashrama system. So, having heard about the unfortunate situation in Kali Yuga, short lives, quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, and above all, unlucky and always disturbed, it is not possible for us, for the people of Kali Yuga, to study various scriptures, many scriptures, and go through all the instructions. So therefore, the sages of Naima and Serena, they are asking Sutta Goswami to give the essence of the scriptures, so that even though the people of Kali Yuga have short lives, still they can be able to absorb the essence and take advantage of that. Any comment or question before we move on to text 12? Any comment or question? Anyway, we move on to text 12. In text 12, it says, Sutta Janasi Badramte Bhagavan Satwatam Patihi Devakyam Vasudevasya Jato Yashya Chakrisayaha. Translation. All blessings upon you, O Sutta Goswami. You know for what purpose the personality of God had appeared in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva. So this is the third question. The first question is in verse 9. The second question is in verse 11. And the third question is in verse 12. So what is the purpose? Why did the Lord appear in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva? Why? Why did the Lord appear in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudeva? You want to know what is the purpose for the personality of Godhead to appear in the womb of Devaki and became the son of Vasudeva? Why? So in the purpose of the Prabhupada writes, Bhagavan means the Almighty God, who is the controller of all opulences, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. He is the protector of his pure devotees. Although he is equally disposed to everyone, he is especially inclined to his devotees. Sat means the absolute truth, and persons who are servitors of the absolute truth are called Sattvatas. And the personality of God who protects such pure devotees is known as the protector of Sattvatas. So, the sages are blessing, Sutta Goswami, saying, Bhadrate. Bhadrate means all blessings upon you, all auspiciousness upon you. May you have a long life to speak to us, to give us the essence of our religion. So they are blessing him so that he can speak to them. So, as such, people are called Sattvatas. The Sat is the Supreme Personality of God. Sat means the absolute truth. And anyone who is serving the absolute truth is called Sattvata. And the scriptures that the Sattvatas study are called the Sattvata Tantras. Sattvata Tantras. The scriptures describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The scriptures describing devotional service, they are described as Sattvata Tantras. So we move on to text 13. Tanasrusru sammananam arasi aganu vanitum yashyavataro bhutanam shemaya cha bhavaya chaha. Sutta Goswami. The translation, oh Sutta Goswami, we are eager to learn about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. Please explain to us those teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas, for one is uplifted both by speaking them and by hearing them. So, purport, the condition for hearing the transcendental message. The conditions for hearing the transcendental message of absolute truth are set forth here. The first condition is that the audience must be very sincere and eager to hear. And the speaker must be in the line of disciplinary succession from the recognized acharyas. The transcendental message of the absolute truth is not understandable by those who are materially absorbed. The transcendental message of the absolute truth is not understandable by those who are materially absorbed. Under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, one becomes gradually purified. Therefore, one must be in the chain of disciplinary succession and learn the spiritual art of submissive hearing. In the case of Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naima Serenya, all these conditions are fulfilled because Sutta Goswami is in line of Srila Vyasadeva, and the sages of Naima Serenya are all sincere souls who are anxious to learn the truth. So, the eagerness to hear is most important. Without the eagerness to hear, how can we make spiritual advancement? So our eagerness to hear Srimad-Bhagavatam is very important. Srimad-Bhagavatam Purananam Amalam Yat Vaishnavam Priyam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure supreme knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from material work together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad-Bhagavatam and who properly hears and chants it with devotion becomes completely liberated. These are the words of Sutta Goswami to the sages of Naima Serenya. So, eagerness to hear. I think in the last part of this chapter, in the last verse, or last by one verse, the sages are saying, what are they saying? Swade, swade, pade, pade. That they are ready to hear, what is it? Yeah, swadu, swadu, pade, pade. Vayam tu virtipyama, utama sloke vrakame. Yat chrutam rasar gyanam, swadu, swadu, pade, pade. We want to hear more. We are eager to hear more. So the candidate must be eager to hear. That eagerness, actually it is said that is the prize for becoming Krishna conscious. It's called lolium. Lolium means the eagerness to hear, the eagerness for service, the eagerness for reading, the eagerness for chanting, the eagerness for everything Krishna conscious. That is called lolium. And it is said that that is the price one has to pay in order to become Krishna conscious. If we are not eager in our Krishna consciousness, we are not eager in our studies, we are not eager for anything, then how can we make progress? So the eagerness to make advancement, the eagerness to learn, the eagerness to practice, the eagerness to be fixed in Krishna consciousness must be there. Yeah, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labiate Tatra Lolium Api Muliam Ekalam Jarma Koti Sukritai Na Labiate. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can only be attained only by paying the price. And that is the intense greed to obtain it. The intense greed to hear, the intense greed to chant, the intense greed to serve, the intense greed to know. It is available. Wherever it is available, one must purchase it at all costs without any delay. So that is the price for becoming Krishna conscious. So the sages of Naima and Serenya, they said they are very eager to hear from Sutta Goswami. Why is he delaying? He should start speaking that knowledge that can free everyone from this material entanglement. So we move to the text, the next verse, verse 14. Apana samsmritim goram yanama vivasho grinam tata sadyo vimuchata yad bibeti swayam bayam. Translation: living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. So the Srila Prabhupada writes, Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the supreme controller of everything. There is no one in creation who is not afraid of the range of the Almighty God. Great asuras like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, and others, who were very powerful living entities, were all killed by the personality of Godhead. So, actually, the holy name is highlighted. The sages are highlighting the importance of chanting the holy name. The materially entangled living beings can immediately be freed by even unconsciously chanting the Lord's holy name. which is feared by fear personified. So chanting the holy name is important, and because the holy name is not different from Krishna. Actually, in the last part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, it says, it is stated herein that the name of Krishna is feared even by fear personified. This indicates that the name of Krishna is not different from Krishna. Therefore, the name of Krishna is as powerful as Lord Krishna himself. There is no difference at all. Anyone, therefore, can take advantage of the holy names of Lord Sri Krishna, even in the midst of the greatest dangers. The transcendental name of Krishna, even though uttered unconsciously or by force or circumstances, can help one attain freedom from the hurdle of birth and death. So in the Padma Purana, this is very much emphasized. Nam Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Sudo Nityo Mukta Binatwam Naminoho. The holy name of Krishna is transcendentally blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete. It is the form of transcendental melody. It is not a material name under any condition. It is no less powerful than Krishna, since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities. There's no question of it being involved in Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna are identical. Krishna and his name are identical. So anytime we are chanting Hare Krishna, we should just understand that we are actually having the association of Krishna, because the name of Krishna and Krishna are not different. We go to the next verse, verse 15. If anybody has a question, you can stop me, because I am almost like I'm raising so that we can cover the Yes, Maharaj.
The text 13, is it the question or?
No, it's not a question. The questions are 9, 11, and 12. Those are the first 3 questions. And the other 3 questions are found in 17, 18, and 23.
Okay, thank you.
Other 3 questions are coming up.
All right, thank you.
Question. Is yet a statement of fact. So we go on to text 15. Text 15 says, Yad pada samsraya sutta munaya prashanman yanaha sadhya punati upas pristya swaduni apo nishishmaya. Translation, O sutta, those great sages who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use. Prabhupada writes, pure devotees of the Lord are more powerful than the waters of the sacred river Ganges. This is very serious. Very serious. Prabhupada is making a very strong statement here, that the pure devotees of the Lord are more powerful than the waters of the sacred river Ganges. One can derive spiritual benefit out of prolonged use of the Ganges waters, but one can be sanctified at once by the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. Just see, Prabhupada is comparing the pure devotees to the Ganga, and says that one has to bathe in the Ganga a number of times in order to get purified. But once you get the opportunity to associate with the pure devotee, then there is every chance that you can be purified. And the evidence is there. Before Srila Prabhupada went to America, there were no pure devotees. They were all engaged in different things. But as soon as they started associating with Prabhupada, so many gems, so many pure devotees came out. And they themselves became pure devotees. And they scattered all over the world. And they created more pure devotees. People are bathing the Ganges. If you go to Mayapur, you go to Navadvip, you go to Rishikesh, Haridwar, every day people are bathing in the Ganges. but they are still smoking hemp. They are bathing the Ganges, they are still eating fish. Especially in Bengal, they call the fish fruits of the water. They say it's the fruits of the water. Jala fuli or whatever they call it. They say it's the fruits of the water. But they are bathing in the Ganges every day. But just by associating with the pure devotees, we have given up smoking, we have given up drinking, we have given up illicit sex, we have given up gambling, we have given up all these things, meat eating and everything, just by the association of the pure devotees. So therefore, Prabhupada is not wrong by comparing the pure devotee to the river Ganges. Even though the river Ganges is actually coming from the lotus feet of Vamanadev. When Lord Vamanadev kicked the universe, the covering of the universe, there was a crack. And from that crack, the water from the causal ocean is seeping into this universe. So, but still, Prabhupada says that water, for one to be purified, you have to bathe there a number of times. But just by meeting a pure devotee, associating with him, rendering service to him, one becomes purified. So that means the pure devotee, his spiritual potency is even greater than that of the Ganges. And that is why we have to honor the pure devotees. We have to serve them. We have to associate with them. We have to learn from them so that we can get this full benefit of becoming pure and free from the entanglement of the material energy. We go to text 16. Actually, it's already 9:30. I don't know whether we can go on for another 10 or 20 minutes. Is it possible? Or it's going to affect the next class? Is Chaitanya Prem still here or has left? Can we still go for another 10 minutes or 20 minutes without affecting the next class?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Chaitanya Prema has left, and I think it is left for the student and the teacher to decide if we want to go forward. I think
so there's a class in front of us. There's a class after this. So
class in about 30 minutes time.
Okay.
The Bhakti Sastri class is starting in 30 minutes time.
I want your consent. So we continue for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so that we can see how far we can go to cover, because we're supposed to finish this chapter today, so we can start a new chapter tomorrow. But if we don't finish, it means tomorrow we have to finish before we go to the next chapter. So it depends on you. I'm available.
I support you. Go 10 minutes, Maharaj.
Another 10 minutes. Do everybody agree to that?
I have no objection.
No objection. Okay. So we'll go for another 10 minutes. So we go to text 16. Text 16 says, Kova Bhagavata Stasya Punya Sloke Dia Karmanaha Sudi Karmona Srinuyat Yasha Kali Malapaham. Translation: Who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel? Who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? Who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel? Who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? So in the purpose, the Prabhupada says, the age of Kali is the most condemned age due to its quarrelsome features. Kali Yuga is so saturated with vicious habits that there is a great fight at the slightest misunderstanding. Those who are engaged in pure devotional service of the Lord, who are without any desire for self-aggrandizement, and who are free from the effects of fruitive actions and dry philosophical speculations, are capable of getting out of the estrangements of this complicated age. So Kali Yuga is saturated with vicious habits, very horrible habits, and because of that, the slightest provocation produces misunderstanding and quarrel and fighting. So we see fights everywhere, quarrels everywhere, because the whole age is saturated with vicious habits. And how do we get out of this vicious cycle? It is mentioned here by hearing the virtuous glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Suddhi Karma. By hearing the glorious activities of the Lord, one can be free from the vices of Kali Yuga. One can be delivered from the vices of Kali Yuga, especially when we chant the holy name very strongly, when we chant the holy name very powerfully, when we hear the glories of the Lord very seriously. It is said, Shruta Sankritito Dhyaya Pujitas Chadrio Piva Nrinam Dunoti Bhagavan Hiristo Jamayu Tasubam. That if a person hears about, glorifies, meditates upon, or worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart, the Lord will remove from his mind the contamination accumulated during many, many thousands of lifetimes. So one who hears about the Lord, who glorifies the Lord, who meditates upon the Lord, who worships the Lord, who simply offers respect to the Lord will remove the contamination from within his mind and within his heart that has accumulated for thousands of years. So how to get free from this vicious habit that have saturated Kali Yuga is to hear about, to glorify, to meditate, to worship, to offer respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we go to text 617. Tasya karmani udarani parigrinatani srubihi bruhina sadadadanam nilaya dadati kalaha. So 17 is one of the questions. One of the questions, that's the question 4. It says, his transcendental acts are magnificent and gracious, and great learned sages like Narada sing of them. Please therefore speak to us who are eager to hear about the adventures he performs in his various incarnations. So the question is, describe the Lord's adventures in his various incarnations, Purusha avatars. Describe the Lord's adventures in his various incarnations. That is the 4th question. The sages are asking Sutta Goswami. And in the next chapter, chapter 2, the Sutta Goswami will begin to answer these questions one by one. So we'll come across the answers in the next chapter. So the Proportional Prabhupada writes, the personality of God is never inactive, as some less intelligent persons suggest. His works are magnificent and magnanimous. His creations, both material and spiritual, are wonderful and contain all variegatedness. They are described nicely by celebrated souls such as Narada, Vyasa, Valmiki, Devala, Asita, Madhava, Sri Chaitanya, Ramanuja, Vishnu Swami, Nirbarka, Sridhara, Vishwanath, Baladev, Bhakti Vinod, Siddhanta Saraswati, and many other learned serialized souls. So the Lord's creation is very magnificent and magnanimous and full of all kinds of variegatedness, both in the material world and the spiritual world. They are all full of so many varieties of different things. And Sutta Goswami is asking the Lord, the sages of Nami Serenya, they're asking Sutta Goswami to speak to them about the adventures performed by the various incarnations. So there are many incarnations. It's said that the incarnations of the Lord cannot be counted. In one day of Lord Brahma, so many incarnations are coming and going in one day of Brahma. So the incarnations of the Lord are countless. So the sages, they want to hear some of the past times of these various incarnations, especially the Purusha avatars. Purusha avatars are the three Vishnus, how they create, how they maintain, and how they destroy. Text 18. Text 18 says, Atakyahi hari dimam avatara kata shubha lila vidata swaram ishvara syadma mayaya. O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead. The Supreme God has multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers. Purpose of Prabhupada writes, for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material worlds, the Supreme Lord personally, the Supreme Lord, personality of God in himself, appears in many thousands of forms of incarnations, and the specific adventures found in those transcendental forms are all auspicious. Both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities are benefited. So why is the Lord making so much effort to incarnate many, many times? The activities of these incarnations are beneficial for those who associate with the Lord, those who hear about them, and so it is beneficial for everyone. Those who have the chance to associate with the Lord when he incarnates, they benefited. Those who are not there but just hear the glories of the activities, they also benefit. Both those who are present during such activities and those who hear the transcendental narrations of such activities, they are all benefit. So the Lord comes to perform his pastimes to benedict the devotees. Anugrahaya Bhaktanam. When the Lord descends into the material world, his main purpose is to expand his mercy to all, especially the devotees. So that is 18. 18 is the fifth question. Narrate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord's multi-incarnations. That is the Lila avatars. Narrate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord's multi-incarnations, which are the Lila avatars. First, we talk about the Purusha avatars in question 4, text 17. It talks about the various incarnations. There, Jiva Goswami says Purusha avatars. And then the question 8, the text 18 is talking about the multi-incarnations, and there it is referred to as the Lila avatars. Text 19. Is a very static verse. Vayam tuna vritipyama utamas loke vikrame yachuruvatam rasa gyanam swadu swadu pade pade. We are never tired of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationship with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So, in the purpose of Prabhupada writes, there is a great difference between mundane stories, fiction, or history, and the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The histories of the whole universe contain references to the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas are histories of bygone ages recorded in connection with the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord, and therefore remain fresh even after repeated readings. For example, anyone may read Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad-Bhagavatam repeatedly throughout his whole life and yet find in them new light of information. So, the sages, they are expressing their deep appreciation of what they're anticipating to hear from Sutta Goswami. They said, we are never tired of hearing the glories of the Lord. So please speak on, speak on, speak on. So this should be the mood. We should never be tired of hearing Bhagavatam. We should never be tired of hearing Bhagavad Gita. We should never be tired of hearing the glories of the Lord. We should always be eager to hear more and more and more. That should be the mood. So the sages of Nana Serenya, they're in that mood. So they want to hear the Lord's pastime, the Lila avatars, the Purusha avatars. They want to hear more and more about the pastimes of the Lord, and they are never satisfied. They want to hear more. So we go to text 20. Kritavam kila karmani saha ramena keshava atimatyani bhagavan guda kapata manushaha. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being. And so much, he performed many superhuman acts. In the proportion of proper rights, the doctrines of anthropomorphism and zoomorphism are never applicable to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The theory that a man becomes God by dint of penance and austerities is very much rampant nowadays, especially in India. Since Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were detected by sages and saints to be the personality of Godhead, as indicated in revealed scriptures, many unscrupulous men have created their own incarnations. This process of concocting an incarnation of Godhead has become an ordinary business, especially in Bengal. So many gods are in Bengal. And when they get toothache, they go to a doctor. So anyway, in this verse, it's saying that Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram, they play like human beings. Gudaha kapata manushaha. They play like human beings, but actually they are superhumans, anti-Martiani. They are superhumans. They are not human beings. The various pastimes they perform indicate that they are not ordinary human beings. We have not heard that a 7-year-old child has lifted a mountain before. We have not heard that before. We have not heard that a 3-month-old child had killed a big witch. We have not heard that before. We have not heard that a 5-year-old boy had drunk a forest of fire. We have not heard that before. So all these activities indicate that these boys, they are not just ordinary boys. They are the Supreme Personality of Godhead walking among men in this world. And so we don't have to look down upon them. We have to take advantage of them. God cannot be created. God is always God. Prabhupada will say, we cannot create God. God is always God from the beginning to the end. He's always God. In text 21, it says, Kalim agatam agyaya shetresmin vaishnave vayam asina driga satrena katayam sakshana hare. Translation: knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. So this age of Kali is not at all suitable for self-realization as was in Satya Yuga, the golden age, Treta Yuga, or even Dwapara Yuga, the silver and copper ages. For self-realization, the people in Satya Yuga living a life of 100,000 years were able to perform prolonged meditation. In the Treta Yuga, when the duration of life was 10,000 years, self-realization was attained by performance of great sacrifice. And in Dwapara Yuga, when the duration of life was 1,000 years, self-realization was attained by worship of the Lord. But in the Kali Yuga, the maximum duration of life being 100 years only, and that combined with various difficulties. The recommended process of self-realization is that of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, pastimes of the Lord. So, because of our short lives, laziness, misguided situation, always disturbed, always quarreling, the best process is to chant the holy name of the Lord. So, knowing that Kali Yuga has begun, we assemble here on the pretext of prolonged sacrifice. We only want to hear at great length about Lord Krishna. So the sages are just waiting to hear about the Supreme Personality of God, and that is the greatest sacrifice actually. In Kali Yuga, hearing the holy name, hearing the pastimes, hearing the activities of the Lord, this is the real sacrifice. This is the real sacrifice. We go to text 22. Twamna sandarasito datra dushtaram nishtitirishatam kalim satwa haram pusham karnadhara ivara navam. Translation: we think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. In the purpose of Prabhupada writes, the age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self-realization, but due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will gradually decrease. People will gradually lose their memory, finite sentiments, strength, and their qualities. A list of anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So, to meet a saintly person, to meet the pure devotee of the Lord is by the arrangement of providence. Only by good fortune do we meet a saintly person. And therefore, we shall accept that saintly person to be the captain of our ship so that we can easily sail across this ocean of all faults. Kali Yuga, and we heard Prabhupada say, is saturated with bad habits. In order to sail across this ocean of bad habits, we have to take shelter of a captain, an able captain, the spiritual master, who can help us cross this ocean of quarrel and hypocrisy. And that is by hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master. And finally, we go to text 23, which is the last verse. It says, Bruhi Yogeshwari Krishna Brahmanye Dharma Varmani Swam Kastam Aduno Pete Dharma Kam Sharanam Gataha. Translation: since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. So this is the last question, question 6. Whom did the religious principles take shelter of after Lord Krishna's departure? When Krishna left the planet, everything went with him. So where or whom did the religious principle take shelter? So this is the 6th question. Prabhupada writes in the purport, essentially religion is the prescribed codes enunciated by the personality of Godhead himself. Whenever there is gross misuse or neglect of the principles of religion, the Supreme Lord appears himself to restore religious principles. This is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Here the sages of Naima Serenya are inquiring about these principles. The reply to this question is given later. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is the transcendental sound representation of the personality of Godhead, and thus it is the full representation of transcendental knowledge and religious principles. So this brings us to this end of this chapter, and tomorrow we start with chapter 2. So this is the last question. Whom did the religious principle take shelter of after Lord Krishna departed from this world? If there are any comments, you are welcome. If there are no comments, we call it a day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Any comments? Otherwise, we have to close because another class is coming soon. Bhakti class is coming.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for a wonderful Ramachandra Prabhu's hand is up. Let's do it in 5 minutes because we have just 10 minutes before the next class. Ramachandra Prabhu, I'll meet and ask a question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Please, according to the class, you said Amida means one who is free from vices. And Prabhupada give illustration about illicit sex, no gambling, and other things before one qualify to sit on the Vyasa or to give class. I don't know if you can throw more light about that.
Yes. You see, anybody who sits on the Vyasa-san is a representative of Vyasa-dev. Anybody who sits on that seat is a very exalted seat. Of course, because we are so used to it, we don't even see how exalted it is. We just put anybody there and everybody there. So, but it's a very exalted seat. If somebody is not following the principles, he should not be allowed to stay there, to sit there. That is the fact. In the beginning, it was like that. In the beginning, when we have Srila Prabhupada disciples with us, they always insist that if somebody is not following the principles, we should not allow him to sit there and give class. He's representing Srila Vyasadeva. But these days, we are no more very strict with that because of this syndrome of lack of manpower, we allow anybody or everybody to sit there and speak, even though they are not following. So we are going against that principle. Anyone who is sitting on that Vyasa to give class, he must follow these basic principles: no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. At least one should follow these 4 basic rules and regulations. And one must also be conversant with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. If you sit there and you speculate, if you sit there and you present the wrong philosophy, that is dangerous. So therefore, these two things are required. One must be free from vices, and one must also be well equipped, well equipped in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, so that you can you can represent Srila Vyasadeva properly. So that is why they call Vyasasan. Vyasasan means the seat of Vyasa. So if you sit on the seat of Vyasa, then there must be some qualification. There must be some requirement. And so that's why Prabhupada is saying that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So to round up, in follow-up with Ramachandra Prabhu's question, could we say the compromise on these 2 principles, following the regulative principles and being well-versed, not being followed, are the reasons why we have so much challenges in our system?
Well, it's a fact that because we have compromised on these things, the system has become diluted, actually. People who are not following, people who are not well-versed in the philosophy, we are giving them the chance to sit on the Vyasa-san, and they just speculate, they just say some things which are not right. And because people see them sitting on the Vyasa-san and they are still breaking principles, they think, oh, what is the use of following principles? After all, that person, we know him to be breaking principles, but he is allowed to give class in the temple, so I can also break principles and sit on the Vyasa-san. So we are setting very substandards. So that is actually true. We are watering down the system. And that's why we're having all these problems.
Thank you. We'll postpone the further question. There's a further question.
Yeah, we postpone. I join it to the next
class.
Yes,
we'll start from that point. Thank you very much. On this note, I want to request all of the devotees here to please kindly loudly chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate His Grace Srivas Vanachari for this wonderful presentation. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Rama.
Hare.
So those who are on the Bhakti Vaibhava class can exit now because the Bhakti Street students are already joining. I've seen some of them here. So I initially wanted to log out and allow them to come in on after relogging, but since some of them are already joining, so I just request the Bhakti Vaibhava student to kindly exit.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpata kripa sindhya vacha parinjanam pavinibhyo vaishnava namaha.